Alright, for our final installment for this series, we're going to be talking about how to use UDL by providing multiple means of action and expression. So let's review. This relates to the strategic network of the brain, illustrated here in blue as the front part of the brain. This has to do with the how of learning. Because we're all so different in how we learn, the guideline from CAST is to provide multiple means of action and expression. Earlier, we discussed representation as how you present the content to students. In contrast, action and expression is how the learner processes that information and communicates it back to you. Here are 5 ideas about action and expression to get us rolling. An icon of a notebook with a pencil to represent writing, an icon of a person surrounded by smaller icons for text, video, images, etc., referring to multimedia, an icon showing charts and graphs for visualization, an icon of someone conducting a science experiment at a lab table, which refers to demonstration or hands-on application, and lastly, an icon of a person with a speech bubble representing verbal speaking. All of these methods represent strengths for some students, but barriers for others. Let's get our playbook back out so that we can strategize how to overcome potential barriers by providing multiple means of action and expression. CAST suggests that you should provide options for physical action, for expression and communication, and for executive functions. So let's pull out that clipboard with specific tips from CAST. They suggest that to provide options for physical action, you should vary the methods for response and navigation and optimize access to tools and assistive technologies. My first example to check off boxes from our checklist is to vary the options for physical participation. You want to mix up whether students are raising hands, moving around the room, etc., so that it's not always the same type of physical action. I want to note that in the online classroom, this often has more to do with the technologies themselves. When choosing a digital tool, gravitate toward ones that have multiple input styles, like a mouse click versus a keystroke. If you're doing a synchronous online session, this could involve how students are able to get your attention. Can they raise their hand? Should they click the raise a hand button? Can they do more than one option? Another strategy is to promote assistive technologies when they're relevant. You don't need to use these tools or teach students how to use them, but having an awareness is what will help you promote them when they could help. You could recommend screen reading tools, screen magnifiers, audiobooks, etc. whenever students are struggling with a barrier to learning, and connect them with the resources that would help. On to our next clipboard checklist, providing options for expression and communication. First, use multiple media for communication. Second, use multiple tools for construction and composition, which has to do with the fact that learners can be different in how we put together meaning, how we draft our communications. So provide tools that allow people to do that in different ways. Lastly, build fluencies with graduated levels of support for practice and performance. And that has to do with scaffolding student learning, offering support options for students who need it to adequately communicate their learning. Let's look at a few examples to check off some boxes from the list. First, allow both multimedia and text responses for assignments when possible. Let students express their thoughts in text, audio recording, or video. This is a great strategy to use when you're assessing content over format, such as in discussion posts or reflection assignments. Another example would be to provide optional scaffolds for composition, such as sample outlines or sentence starters. It's important not to mandate these, however, because you're trying to provide options, not create more barriers. The scaffolding should be there for students who need it and who want to use it, but students can choose to bypass the scaffolding and come at the assignment from a different angle. The last checklist for our clipboard is about providing options for executive functions. CAST recommends that you guide appropriate goal setting and support planning and strategy development. For these 2 strategies, consider how learners differ in their project management skills. For students who struggle with processing large tasks or managing time well, often due to a learning disability, you should consider providing optional support for those skills. Our third strategy is to facilitate managing information and resources. Again, some students, particularly those with disabilities, can have trouble managing that information flow. How can you provide suggestions and guidance to help prevent students from getting overwhelmed by sources and information? Lastly, enhance capacity for monitoring and progress. This is similar to our discussion on self-regulation when we discussed multiple means of engagement. Enhancing the student's capacity for monitoring progress involves providing support and resources that scaffold students to be more autonomous managers of their own learning, perhaps with prompts or samples. Let's check off our last boxes from CAST checklist with a few examples. First, you can model and promote resource management tools and strategies. For example, software like Zotero, Mendeley, and RefWorks help people manage research sources and citations. Web bookmarking and annotation tools like Hypothesis can help us manage and collaborate on web-based content. Share with students how you manage your information. Our second example is to provide optional scaffolds for project management. This could involve sample timelines for breaking down long-term projects, suggested group roles to help facilitate group work, opportunities for check-ins throughout a project, or sample project management frameworks like Scrum, Waterfall, or CCPM. Our sources, for the last time, are the National Center on Universal Design for Learning from CAST, and all the icons that we used are from FreePick via flaticon.com.